404164. We're on US Highway 60 in the southbound lane. We're in Major County, Oklahoma, just north of the city of Fairview. Pulling up to give a perspective on the area we're in. There's a big wheat field over there just to the east of us, as you can see. Looking on around, we're in a pretty flat section. Less than 0.5% grade on this. On back behind us there up to the north towards Orienta, there's you drop back down into the floodplain for a creek and then a curve for the city, but we're well away from that. Working on around, you see some mesas out over on the horizon over there. That's beginnings of the Glass Mountains here. We're in the dry, no-freeze environment out in the western part of the state. And now looking back up onto the test section itself. Looking towards the south, as I mentioned before, we're looking towards the city of Fairview. Selected for cell 2-115, but as we did the drilling operation, we found that it was actually in cell 2-113. In other words, the change was rather than the high thickness base, we find that the average thickness is low. We have a fine aggregate bituminous bound base here. It's a plant mixed base, but we've got a thickness which averages out to be less than 8 inches on it, and for the surfacing, the thickness is on the average around 4¼ inches. These are the two cores which we pulled out. On this first one you can see that we have slightly less than 4 inches of asphalt concrete total, and then right at 8 inches of base. However, on the subsequent core we pulled, we had around right at 4½ inches, which was called for on the plans of asphalt concrete, but we only had around, if I remember correctly, about 7 3/8 inches of the hot sand base. And this is what ultimately resulted in us changing the cell on this and moving it into what is considered an empty cell. This was selected for, or it now fits into a category for low asphalt thickness, low base thickness, coarse subgrade, low traffic, dry no-freeze environment. We'll begin now and commence with a walking video tour of the test section. This was constructed back in the mid-70s, around 76, 77 time period, and we have developed some distress in here. The most prevalent type is transverse cracking, and I believe I counted 9 transverse cracks throughout, most of which are categorized as medium severity. See another one right up ahead. We've got a number of cracks which are transverse in their direction, but they do not cross the lane entirely. And here's some examples of those. You can see them out there in the center of the lane typically. I'm not counting these specifically as transverse cracks, but I'm noting them as otherwise, as other types of transverse cracks, and I'm making the break point between those and the so-called regular transverse cracks at those which are less than 6 feet long. One thing that you may notice on this is that I have the numbers or the numerals on the test section in different locations than before. The reason I did that is that the lane line, the distance from lane line to the center line stripe there is actually 13 feet. This line that you see here, as I'm pointing out on here, is actually the edge of the pavement and the shoulder as shown on the plans, but the stripe was placed 1 foot offset. And so in reality the lane width here is 13 feet, and that's what I'm recorded, although I am noting these differences on the project field verification form. Here's another transverse crack of medium severity. Ahead you see Oklahoma's falling weight deflectometer. Station 2 plus 10 is another very easy to note transverse crack. What's interesting about this is that it only crosses one lane. It doesn't cross both the southbound and the northbound lanes. But it does go all the way across the paved shoulder, which is a full depth asphalt concrete or asphalt over fine aggregate bituminous base shoulder. On with the walking tour, the rutting measurements we took averaged out to around 1/10 of an inch of rutting in each lane, which is negligible. Does not affect surface drainage